Hey everyone, welcome along. So, taxi time, yeah? Said we'd look at it, didn't we? And if you remember, the whole point of the taxis was to do something and to show just how much data we could bring through, and what kind of meaningful insights we could really derive using just a pro subscription. And the reason why I thought it was really important to do this, and I've still stuck by it throughout the many years of this, is because I get the question, oh, do we need to go premium? Oh, right? And time and again, it comes back to the efficiency of your model, how you build it, and what you do with it to actually make it work as to whether you can get away with it or not. And there'll be questions that you might find that you have to do or things that you have to do to get it to work, but you can still do an awful lot with a pro subscription. Okay, it's not like some poor man's choice or poor woman's choice, poor person's choice. It's a valid choice, it's a valid option. If you need the premium features, that should really be the only reason why you go into the premium side. So for our bike data, for example, where we're using direct query, that's a premium feature. Now, given the nature of the taxi data, we could definitely say, do you know what? Direct query, that would make such a difference because we just don't need that fact table of data really. We could do all sorts of things to actually have it all pieced together and updated with aggregation table, all those things. Okay. We could do lots of things around that and make it really efficient and work. And it would be a much smaller, easy to manage file. Okay. We could do all that. But what I want to show you really as well is kind of that we've modeled it. We've been able to pull everything through from 2019 to May, which is 2 months data, or up to minus 2 months. Hopefully we'll get the June data soon. We'll bring that through. It'll be a nice, easy piece of refresh work, and then it'll go. All right, so here we are, okay, SharePoint. This is where I'm keeping the PBIX files, okay, as I'm going through and doing this build work here, okay. There's a couple of things that have happened. So at some point in 2022, the decision was taken by New York to move this from being CSV based to being Parquet based. Now, Parquet files, I was trying to work out the best way to explain what Parquet files are. Right? I'm going to stick with the definition I always give for them, which is like CSVs, but with formatting is probably as good as it's going to get. Okay, so they're a really efficient file mechanism or mechanism of storing files. Okay, there's one per month, and everything's just gone down, downloaded them all, just the yellow taxis data from January 2019 all the way through to, as I say, the end of May. What I've had to do, though, with all of this, right, and can't use SharePoint stored to process them, I've had to set up an Azure storage area, so an ADLS storage location. So there will be a charge for that in terms of if you wanted to do this, but you can use ADLS with on-premise storage. Right, so you'll be able to use on-premise storage and a local gateway to then do it, but you can't stream it from SharePoint. It just does not like it. So I've put them all in SharePoint anyway, just so that's where they are, rather than cutting up my computer or anything like that. They're in SharePoint with everything, but I've also had to upload them to our Azure storage area that I've set up for it. So it's here in our Power BI workspace. You can see no diamond, bog standard pro workspace. I can prove that to you in the workspace settings, license info pro, but what you will see is in the Azure connections, it does have a connection there, okay? So we've got something in there. With that, then what I've done is I've had to go through and create one per year. I could probably have got away with 2 years, maybe 3 years, but if you try and do everything, it'll run out because you're back to Pro, which has a 2-hour refresh period, takes over 2 hours, it won't work. So with this, what we've got is we've got the ability to have each year there. They don't need to be refreshed, but it can go through, and then obviously all we need to do when the new data comes through, put the 2024 file, the updated file in, and then refresh the 2024 data flow and refresh the file. Okay. Again, this is one of those things. If you'd use direct query, we would just have to refresh the data flow. So for something like this, you might find that's really quick and easy and efficient. Depends on your strategy and what you've got going on. But yeah, there's all sorts that can go on with it. But yeah, for this, be aware. The plus side, or the thing to remember, of course, is with Power BI, when things are refreshing, it's doing a parallel refresh. So you're building a new data set or building a new table alongside the one that's being used for analysis. And then, and only then, when it's completed, is it dropped and the original one or the new one moved into service. So that's fine for you. You won't lose anything while this is all refreshing. And that's still the case with Pro. Let's see if we have a look at the Power BI files now. So this is the first PBIX file that we've got, okay? This was one I messed up, made a big boo-boo of, okay? And there was a couple of things, and I should just stop, thought I'm not doing this, this won't work. Okay, the big thing with this is this came up to 4 gigabytes, okay? So the limit with Pro is 2 gigabytes. So we would only have been able to do half of the data if we went down this route. And I kind of looked at it and went, oh, idiot, why have you done that? So I've not done anything else with it. So there's a couple of things wrong with this. So it's still got some auto date timetables in it because I haven't set a date table, okay? Or a calendar. I really should change my Power BI desktop. Normally I do, as I say, new laptop, new things, haven't updated it yet. This is the VPAX file though for it. Now, one of the things I want you to have a look at, okay, this is what we talk about. This is where it comes down. This is kind of where you need to get your head around this. Okay. In terms of database size, so of our total file, how much of it is something? What we've got here is we've got one table. Right? Bear in mind, in practical terms for this, there's only really 2 tables, 3 or 4 by the time you get into a full model that I'll show you on the other side. Okay, but one table is taking up 99.89% of the size of this 4 gigabytes of a file size, okay? And then if we look into it, what we can do is we can expand this down. So we can see, well, tell me the tables or the columns that are causing us the problems, okay? We get a full profile of the columns that we're bringing through. And what we can see is we've got these ones here, right? These are the date time tables or columns, sorry, that I forgot to change from date time to be date. And each of them is taking up 44% of the file. So basically, what we've got to is the point. This is one of the things that I talk to people about when we're looking at VPAXs and understanding what it means is you want to have an efficiency saving and actually go and manage your data model correctly. And time and again, it comes back to 1 or 2 columns that people have got that are just really bad and bloating the whole thing out of all proportion. So in this case, well, 98% plus of the entire model is based on 2 columns, okay? 2. And when you get to your head around and go, right, I have to do something about that. So we've done something about it, okay? And I'll show you what we've done. And I think you might be a bit kind of like, wow, that's actually amazing because that's not difficult to do. Okay, so we've got this yellow taxis file, which is one I'm starting to look at now. Stack Studio. Okay, let's change this. So you can see this was connected to the original one. Let's connect back and home, hit connect. We're going to connect to the yellow taxis, connect to it. Under advanced, let's view metrics. Okay, it's different, isn't it? Okay, so straight away, we can see if we look at journeys, there's a lot more variance, isn't there? Our most expensive has become, in terms of like total file size, it's become this trip distance, okay? And trip distance is something we can live with, isn't it? That's how far has the journey gone. We might get to the point though, if this crosses or moves towards the 2 gigabyte limit that we've got for these, that we have to remove trip distance. So we have to think about what trip distance is and take steps to minimize what it is. So we probably round it, do something like that. Is it less than a mile? Is it over between 1 and 2 miles, 2 and 4, 4 and 8? Do something like that maybe. I'm not sure. But these are things that we could look at and we would start to work through as you would piece together what you need to do to retain the status of being able to run under Pro. Okay. But that's a huge difference it made. In terms of impact that it actually made, the real impact that it's made for us, in terms of real world difference, you can see it's gone from 4.1 here to 1.2. So suddenly we've actually got headroom, haven't we? We could publish this, we've got headroom. So we'd easily be able to get through to the end of 2024, maybe even partly through 2025 before we'd actually get to the point where, we're out of space, we've got to do something. So I've got that in place just from fixing that column. In terms of the amount of data that's in there, there's actually more columns in the new model because I've split time out to how there was before. But this is one of those things where you really have to see it to kind of go, okay, I get it now. This is why you tell us to do these things. Okay. That said, models through, it worked really quickly. It came through really easily. And frankly, I think, I've put a few things in so far, but we could look at things, as I say, interesting things with average fare, trying to work out what happened on the 3rd of May. I have to figure that one out. It might be a tube strike or something like that. A tube strike? Some sort of a strike. But we can, come through and say, well, let's say total fares by year. Not sum of year, by year. Okay, so it comes through, we can see the fares per year. It's pretty performant, isn't it? And when you get to the point where you realize that what we're talking about here is our journeys table, and the journeys table is 235 million rows of data. That's not bad from a performance perspective, is it? That it kind of, I'm able to open, do stuff, build things. So what do you reckon then? Getting the taxi data through it's interesting, it's fine, it's nothing dramatic. The headache was around setting up a storage account. I've not put in the time and effort for, thinking about, we're going to have to pay for it. Those kind of things were more of an annoyance. The parquet side is something that would, for most of you, shouldn't really affect you. I think if your business has decided you're going to go down the parquet route, which is something that's used a lot now in Azure and data warehousing, then, Azure Synapse, they often talk about, parquet files, and we get parquet files out, or, so from the Python side, really, you may find that you're going to want to have a way of dealing with it. Certainly it's easier if you go down the premium route, because there's options with premium to kind of process those parquets elsewhere. But that said, storage accounts, they're pretty cheap. I mean, this, in terms of how much data we've used with this, it's 3 gigabytes. In terms of the cost that's going to cost us, I don't, it'll be less than a cup of coffee, probably for a year. It's like not much this is going to be. So it's not a case of saying, this would destroy all our plans corporately if we had to do it. Storage is cheap in the cloud. It's not a huge cost to use. But then you've brought it through, we've processed it, it's now available to use. We've also then been able to leverage it. We're using our Pro subscriptions for it. So we've got that. So from our single pane of glass reporting now, all of a sudden, we can start to slot in bike data alongside taxi data. So we could actually see on a particular day how many taxi journeys were there, how many bike journeys were there. Now, one of the things that you've got to understand with single pane of glass reporting is that you can't mash them together per se, okay? Because a Power BI report can only report on the model that's there. You can't report on data from another model. So you can, with dashboards, is where you start to piece that together and bring it in. So we'll show you how that goes, and we'll start to piece those in, and you'll see it next week. Because next week we're going to bring in what's pretty much an established data set. There's nothing, I'm not going to do any changes, no tweaks needed with it. It's just running. So we'll do our first piece out of a single pane of glass reporting where we actually slot New York together. Okay. As always, if you like what you see and you think, do you know what, I could really do with having these guys giving me some help and support in our data aspirations and how we want to really push Power BI further forward, the Power Platform as a whole further forward in our organization, email down below, get in touch, and we'll help you through whatever it is. For now, though, stay safe, take care, ta-da.